Larry B. Being a never-in, I look at all the Scientology stuff in the right Gibney way, in as much as the belief itself is irrelevant, but the why we believe is the real question. With that being said, I stumbled upon an actual lecture from Hubbard on YouTube with information that Scientologists deem confidential. Excited about actually hearing some primary source materials, I listened and have two questions. A, is this legit? If so, how come they are not taken down? Don't they charge thousands of dollars for these materials? B, listening to these tapes, I was really taken aback by just how meandering and pointless Hubbard sounds. I was expecting the charisma that has been attributed to him to come across, but it didn't to me. He sounds like a guy talking off the top of his head about something kind of ridiculous. Now, if you were in the room with the guy live, then I can understand, because it could be chalked up to a you had to be there type situation. But most of the people I hear talking about their experiences were mature or your young adults, while Hubbard was in hiding or dead and would never have met him, including yourself. What was your reaction when you listened to these tapes for the first time? Okay, thanks for the question. Yes, the lectures you linked to are legit. That was L. Ron Hubbard. And ironically, that link doesn't work anymore. That video was taken down because of numerous third-party copyright infringement notices, is what it said when I went to the link today. But I knew what the lecture was, and I was able to see that. As far as your second question, let me turn this a little bit, okay? Because I get asked this stuff all the time, right? Like I get from what you're asking me, like you listen to Hubbard talking and you're like, dude, what the hell? This guy sounds like he's meandering. It's going on and on. This is ridiculous. There's no charisma. There's no nothing. Well, for you, there isn't. And it totally makes sense that there isn't, because you've been exposed to a ton of anti-Scientology material that is created a view already in your mind that Scientology completely sucks and that L. Ron Hubbard is full of it. So even if you attempt to put that aside and objectively listen to what he's saying, you're still going to have this very skewed bias. I, coming into Scientology as a second gen, having been raised in it since I was 4, had the exact opposite bias. People mostly come into Scientology through friends and family. So they come into an organization for the first time having already been talked to, it's been presented a particular way, they've been told to have certain expectations, they've been told how brilliant L. Ron Hubbard is, they have been told that he's a genius, brilliant, amazing, better scientist than most scientists. Like, there's a lot of ways that that Scientologists describe L. Ron Hubbard. Charismatic is not a word they usually use. Us critics usually actually use that word more often than Scientologists do. They use these other, much more glowing, way bigger words. Sure, they wouldn't argue with the word charismatic. It's just not the word that really comes to mind so much as genius, super genius, amazing man, my, teacher, the best philosopher who's ever lived. It's every, amazing hyperbole thing you can say. They'll say. But here's the point. By describing a person with all those attributes, maybe they build them up to be too much. They try to tone it down. They try to keep it chill when they're talking to somebody newly. But just using one or two of those words even sets up things, expectations and ideas in a person's mind who has no idea about any of this, right? Not familiar with Lawrence Wright or Alex Gibney or Leah's show or my work or anybody else's work. Like, let's say you had somebody out there who really didn't know anything about it. And a friend or a family member, in other words, somebody they trust, tells them, this guy has found the answers, man, or whatever they say. The guy who doesn't know anything goes, really? Huh. And in his brain, it's all firing off hopes, ambitions, ideas, desires, ideals, like things he wants to accomplish or she wants to accomplish in their life. And here's a potential person out there who might have the answers they're looking for. Yes, they could come in and have a skeptical attitude about it, but they're also going to have these little hopes and dreams and desires there. Otherwise they wouldn't show up, right? Nobody walks into a Scientology organization in this scenario that I'm presenting here with the idea that they're going to take the organization down or they're going to prove Hubbard wrong or something like that. You wouldn't bring somebody like that in. You'd be like, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about Scientology anymore, right? But if you get somebody a little excited about it, they are in this frame of mind I'm describing. So they go in and they start listening to Hubbard, or they watch him on a film or in an interview, because he's in the Tony Hitchman interview that he does from the 1960s, the Introduction to Scientology video. He comes across as, well-traveled, a very smart, brilliant man, very, kind of a jovial sort of talker, I guess. Maybe jovial's too strong a word, but he comes across fairly well to somebody who doesn't know anything about him. That's the important part here, okay? So obviously I'm talking about biases here. And the reason I'm talking about this is because your question, you listened and you went, man, this doesn't make any sense. This is crap. I can't understand how anybody would ever fall for this. Good. that's not I'm not criticizing that response to the lecture. I'm saying that if you don't understand how anybody else wouldn't have that same reaction you had, that's what all this bias talk is about, okay? You went in there with already knowing it was bullshit, so he just confirmed for you that it was bullshit. If somebody comes in there thinking it's going to be the greatest thing they've ever heard and it's going to help them in their life, they're going to find something in what he's saying that's going to help them. That's how it works, Now, also keep in mind, the second half of my answer here is that you were listening to high-level information. So all of that, everything I was just talking about was sort of on the introductory side, but now let's take that same person who came in, was mildly helped by L. Ron Hubbard in some fashion or by his methods or guidelines or techniques, goes all in, becomes a Scientologist, drinks all the Kool-Aid, goes on to the places where you're going to now hear the stuff you listen to, the real high-level confidential stuff. Now he's got 1,000 more biases in place to keep him there, and what he, so it's almost a matter of what he's hearing Hubbard talk about on these lectures, the same lectures you listened to when you were hearing them. It's night and day. It's black and white. It's two different things. He's hearing a whole different thing from what you're hearing. You're literally listening to two different lectures because of the mindset, the difference between those two things, okay? I'm pretty sure I made my point. I know I go on, and I'm trying to not do that and failing. But I think I got my point across on this. If you have any other comments about that, about my answer to your question or anything, feel free to contact me. But I think that's what's actually going on with your question, and I think that's the answer to your question, and I hope that comes across that way.